I'm Adrienne Giffen, and this is Now You're Talking. Parenting in the digital world can feel overwhelming, especially when you're balancing a career, raising teens and preteens, and trying to keep up with it all. Screens are constant, and sometimes real connection feels out of reach. This podcast is your chance to pause and breathe, a space for stories and insights that bring encouragement, perspective, and the reminder that you are not alone. Today, I'm joined by Tacha Fletcher, licensed clinical social worker, holistic life coach, and founder of Wellness Tree Counseling. Tasha's journey from solo practitioner to leading a thriving group practice is deeply tied to her own mental health and personal growth. We talk about the courage it takes to build a business while raising a family, the power of boundaries and self-care, and what it really looks like to parent in the digital age. From screen time battles to creating healthy family rhythms. If you've ever wondered how to care for yourself while caring for everyone else, this episode is for you. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Let the conversations begin. So Tasha, thank you for being with me today and sharing your story. It's wonderful to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, my pleasure. And I see that you're wearing your Wellness Tree sweatshirt, which is fantastic, and the same color as your walls, which is the same color as your logo. Can you just start by sharing a little bit about your story and why you created the Wellness Tree Counseling?
Yeah. So Wellness Tree Counseling birthed out of my own personal experience and journey navigating my own mental health and wellness needs. So growing up, I grew up as the youngest in a single parent household, Haitian background. And so for me, there were, what I like to say, a lot of cards that were dealt that I didn't necessarily get to pick. And so learning to make lemonade out of lemons. And so as I kind of grew and became of age and kind of thinking about what do I want to do? How do I want to do this? I was very much so drawn into the helping field very early in my life. That just came from, being a support to my mom and family members. And so helping others came very naturally for me.
Yes.
Being an advocate, whether it's advocating for myself or other people, loved ones, just came very naturally and was very rewarding. And so that led me to the field of social work.
Yes.
So I graduated with my master's in social work and I started my career in your typical social work field. I worked in hospitals, schools, community-based organizations, and my most recent positions before transitioning into private practice, I worked as a therapist. And so I fell in love with, seeing people come in and be vulnerable and really trust me to guide and to support them. And
yes,
what was even more rewarding is that the people that I found the most passion from working with is people that look like me, people who share similar experiences and backgrounds, and while also bringing in their own diversity and unique experiences. And so 19, I made the decision to pivot from, the traditional workspace, and I started my own private practice, Wellness Tree Counseling. When I decided to go into private practice, I initially went in as a solo practitioner, meaning it was just me doing the work. Truth be told, I was tired of managing people, supervising and dealing with all the things that comes with being in management level positions. And so I took a break from that by going into private practice as a solo practitioner. And as you know, 2020, the pandemic hit.
Right. And the year after you started, that must have put,
Yeah, actually, looking back at it, the timeline was perfect. Why? Is because I don't think any of us anticipated being under lockdown for that long. We thought we were going in for maybe a few weeks. A week turned into months, and months have turned into years.
Yes.
So for me, I was already a year into my business. So the foundation was already set, and then the pandemic hit, and we started to see a shift in the world where people were starting to think about mental health and their own mental health differently. And we all needed help.
Definitely.
Whether we were seeing medical
It's surreal. Yes. Yeah.
Right.
It's surreal that it even happened, actually, doesn't it, when we look back?
Yeah. So the world was, in shambles, and we were all looking for support, whether it's for support for our physical health or support for our mental health. And so business started blooming. And so I decided to pivot from being a solo practice to more of a group practice. So now I have a team of clinicians that supports me in living out our mission, which is to promote wellness through a culturally sensitive lens. And so we offer a wide range of services to support communities of color, Black individuals and families. And so, that's my journey to private practice.
So I love that you said, okay, I'm not going to lead anybody. I'm not going to be that leader. I'm doing it on my own. And then all of a sudden you create this much bigger business. And so there you're back at it again, leading a team. And so what has that journey been like for you from a personal perspective in terms of how you've had to grow to go from being an employee to being an employer?
Yeah. So I would say that my business is like holding up a mirror for me. It's what I call like this parallel growth process. And I noticed that as my business grows, I'm growing personally.
Yes.
When I'm going through personal bumps along the way, my business is also going through personal bumps along the way. It's almost like our identity has become just one. And so it took some time, being in business to accept that my well-being, my functioning, lack of better word, really influenced the livelihood of my business. And so at some point I had to make a shift. Like, it's great to experience success in business, but if you're not feeling that as the owner, that success means nothing. And so once that light bulb clicked, I started just taking care of myself differently, showing up differently in the world. And I think that has really allowed for my business to propel and really blossom in a way that's so beautiful and so aligned with who I am personally and professionally. So we're one. We're like best friends. Like, my business is holding the mirror, reminding me when I'm like trying to avoid some of the personal stress, and my business is like, nope, take the time you need to handle that, right? And so it's an interesting journey being this entrepreneur and being in the mental health field and realizing how important it is to practice what I preach, essentially.
Yes. And when was that moment when you thought, okay, we are so closely interconnected that unless I figure it out, my business isn't going to be what I hoped it would be? Did you have one of those moments, that light bulb moment?
Yeah. So it was about 2 years ago where my business was scaling and growing, and I felt stuck, not sure how to navigate that. And so I decided to join a coaching program. It was a 6-month coaching program designed for CEOs like myself who are running private practice, whether in the mental health field or other fields. And so in going through that, that process, that was the biggest insight that I walked away with, is this idea that in order for me to thrive as a CEO within my business, I have to prioritize my well-being a little bit differently, right? So I would say that light bulb went off for me about 2 years ago.
Well, and then your business has continued to grow since then.
Yeah, it feels a little bit more aligned in the way that my wrong. I feel like there was a tug of war happening. And I wasn't sure, do I go in this direction? Do I do this or do I do nothing? And that became very overwhelming, especially when you have a team of people relying on you to guide them. And so, yeah, that was the eye opener for me that I needed help. I needed to invest back into my business. And ultimately, I started working with my business coach. We started looking at what's working, what's not working, what's the vision, and what does it take to get there? And what do I need to unlearn? Right.
Right.
And I'm sure at some point we'll talk more about like that parenting journey, like because there's that parallel process of being a mom and feeling like I have to do all the things.
Yes.
And then being a business owner and mirroring that same narrative that I have to do all the things, even though I've hired a team of people who are competent and skilled enough to support me.
Yeah.
So this idea that as parents, and I'm going to speak from the perspective of mothers, right? I can't speak from the perspective of fathers, but as a mom, I know that there was a period of time I struggled to ask for help. And it didn't only affect me in my parenting, but it also affected me outside of my role as a parent, as a business owner. And so that's like the alignment piece. And so, yeah.
Oh, it just
delving deeper into that.
Yeah. So we haven't mentioned, but you have a 6-year-old, 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old at the same time as you're building a business. So how has that been for you? Just juggling, all those dynamics that are so interconnected.
Yeah. And if we're like counting the business as like that fourth child, then that would be my 6-year-old and my business are twins because I shifted into private practice around that time. But to answer your question in terms of like, how's it been going in terms of juggling, I will be honest, it didn't start off easy. And there are days where I'm like, I got this. I know what I'm doing, right? It feels like I'm in harmony. And there are days where I'm either drowning in just the parenting aspect or business aspect or somewhere, between the two of them. But overall, what I will say is I am grateful and thankful for my support system, which includes my spouse, friends and family members, and resources that I've been able to tap into that are like support for me. And so yeah, it hasn't been an easy one. Some days, like I said, I feel like I know what I'm doing. And other season, it's like I'm learning this all over again.
Yeah, interesting. So a couple of things I want to ask you, and then we'll talk about how you're managing your kids and through all this in the digital era. But you said something that you had to unlearn something. What was it that you had to unlearn?
So what I had to unlearn is this idea that I can do all things.
You could do all, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So you, okay. So that, and you probably watched your mom do all things.
Yeah, there is some elements of, repeating what, I saw. And, my mom definitely modeled what womanhood looked like for me growing up. And it's now as an adult where I'm realizing that, I can redefine womanhood for myself. And in that process, part of redefining womanhood is also leaning into the vulnerable and the softer parts of me. And, that might look like asking for help. That might look like acknowledging my limitations and staying within my capacity, right? And so I think in my work as a therapist, as well as my personal experience, I think sometimes as humans, we forget that we're not superhumans. We don't have superpowers. Yeah. Especially as a Black woman, right? Where societally, culturally, we may be faced with the belief that we are like these super strong people who can do all the things, when in actuality, that narrative and that belief is to our own detriment. And so that's the unlearning that I had to do later on in adulthood that has allowed me to come into my capacity to do the things that I'm passionate about in a way that's not, for lack of a better word, keeping me down or like holding me back.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fascinating. And what sort of resources, you mentioned resources. What sort of resources do you rely on to help you maneuver all of this?
Yeah. So resources may include grocery ordering apps like Instacart.
Yes, yeah.
It may be, being able to fortunate enough to, use laundry services so that I can buy back my time.
Yes.
Hiring, whether it's a housekeeper. So I say these things because I recognize not everyone is in a position to be able to tap into those resources. But another aspect, when you talk about how am I juggling all of the different roles, I think delegating, right? Being able to learn how to delegate, when to delegate, and why delegation is important, especially as parents, as mothers, as people who maybe are juggling different roles and responsibilities. And so when I talk about resources, it's things like, again, whether it's a housekeeper, whether it's ordering grocery services or laundry services, whatever you need,
Yeah. So just to give yourself some breathing space.
Exactly.
I think as moms, as business owners, we try to take it all on. So you've learned to let go of some of that.
Exactly.
That's a wonderful lesson. And so how are you navigating all of this with your almost teenagers? We have a 13-year-old in the digital era, because that adds a whole nother level of complexity to what already is complex.
Yeah, it is challenging. And I think one way that I am kind of navigating it is modeling. I always say as much as I am connected to whether it's computers, phones, and other, technology because of the work that I do, when I leave work, off my body, off my person, my computer's off, my phone's away, I try to model that for the kids because they do look up to us and they are little sponges. And so by practicing, that's one way of navigating it. And the other way too is by going back to resources. One of the things that our household, utilizes this app, it's called Family Time. It's like a screen. Yeah. It's if you're like a Google, I think it's connected to Google. It's called Family Time app, where I'm able to set screen time limits on my children's devices.
Terrific.
So, we have bedtimes where it times out at a certain time. You can set how much screen time the child has on their device, and you can manage multiple devices all under this one app. And that's something that, we use within the household to help kind of disconnect sometimes, because it's not easy. For these kids when their friends, they're connecting, I say socializing with air quotes, via technology, phones, etc. It can be difficult for them to disconnect. So sometimes they need that added support to, hey, you reached your limit today.
Oh, isn't that terrific? So maybe what I'll do is get that more information about that app, and we can add it to the show notes, because I think that would be very helpful for parents to know about, because then it sort of takes it out of your hands, and
exactly.
You're putting it in something else's hands, and so those are just the family rules.
Yeah, family rules. And my little one, he's still kind of in that younger state where they get excited over little things, so they can earn additional time. So it's like a reward system. So he knows if he wants some extra time, he might grab a book. He might put his toys away, do a little cleanup. He might offer to help mommy. And so it's also able to allow us to reward positive behavior, which I think is so important when raising children.
Yes, for sure. So, and what is the mix between girls and boys in your three kids?
Yeah, so the youngest is a boy, the middle child, the 11-year-old, she's a girl, and then my oldest is a boy.
So, okay, great. So what's it like, having had 4 girls, what's it like managing the digital era? What are the differences? What are the similarities, and what are the differences between the sibs?
Yeah. So one thing I'm seeing more so with my oldest, the boy, is he's into his video games, right? Just like his peers. And so a lot of how he connects with his friends outside of school is they're playing video games together. They are in these like chat rooms together. And so I see that more so with my oldest.
Yes.
With my girl, she is and this could be unique to her personality, she loves music, she loves dancing. And so she's watching like YouTube videos and she's watching TikTok videos. And so it speaks to her creativity, but she's obviously attracted to what she likes and she's doing that. And so it's a lot easier to disconnect my girl from her device because once she gets her videos, her music, she might then go into her arts and craft. Like she loves craft.
The creative, yeah.
Yeah. So I find that that's like some of the difference that I see is based off of the child's interests and how they connect with their peers. They may be more drawn to a device or whether it's video gaming, except, again, that's just in my observation of my children.
Yes, yeah. But I think there are real differences, and it seems like the boys are really attracted to the video games. What happens if you take the video game away from your son?
So one thing I've learned over the years is he's very responsive to like a cool down period. So I might say to him, hey, buddy, you have about 15 minutes left. Or set a timer and we need you to be off by 15 minutes. But I will say that didn't come, it's something I had to learn. And I learned that through the challenges because I used to just come in and say, okay, time's up. Let me get it. And then that's where like the big reactions will come out. Oh, you just messed up my records, or I was in the middle of something, etc. So what I've learned is that he plays, I'm not sure if you're familiar with like Fortnite. That's one of the games that, a lot of these young boys are playing, and apparently there are like set times. You don't want to interrupt the game because then it messes up your ranking. And so I've had to also learn. So giving him warning signs or just a little heads up has been very much so helpful in allowing less of those tantruming behaviors to be present.
Oh, boy. And so is 15 minutes, is that the magic number? Or does it happen that you say, okay, 15 more minutes and then, 15 more minutes? Like, or are you able to sort of stick to that 15-minute stop time?
Yeah. So I definitely think it's important to be consistent with whatever the boundary is. So 15 minutes is not just, it could be 5 minutes. It depends what we're transitioning to. So if we need to be out the house in 5 minutes, of course, I can't give you 15 minutes, right? So the boundary for us is I will give you a heads up to allow you to start to unwind. So whether that's a 5 minute, 10 minute, 15 minutes heads up. So I think it can fluctuate in terms of how much time, but I think what's consistent is modeling just the boundary of, hey, I'll let you know in advance, as opposed to that abrupt interruption, which can, from a therapist lens, which can also lead to dysregulation, right? Feeling like, oh my God, I've lost something that's so important to me and something I felt connected to kind of just been snatched away from me. Just think about how we might feel as adults.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, no, that's so true. And as long as then you're consistent that when you say 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15, that's it. Like that is consistently, you don't ever sort of give on that.
I think I've learned that children will push their limits.
Yeah.
Children will get very creative to get what they want. Yes. And especially when you have adorable children like mine that are so charming and they know if they say and do all the right things, and they know mommy has that soft side, right? Where she's going to give in, right? Maybe they might throw in an extra I love you. Even as hard as it may be sometimes, I do think it's that we follow through, right? So if we set an expectation, we set a boundary, we've communicated a norm, I think it's important that we follow through. Just because children thrive off of structure and predictability, and when they know what to expect, when they know what's coming next, that can feel very comforting. It can provide safety. And I think that's what this digital world has taken away from families, is that we have lost sight of the importance of structure and routines and expectations. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes we're allowing the digital world to set those expectations for us when it might not work for your family. It might not work for the dynamics within your household.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's very brilliant. Tasha, I think, that's so true. In some ways, the digital age is managing us rather than us managing the digital age. So
Exactly.
very interesting. So knowing what you know now, and what would you do looking back? What would you do the same, and what would you do differently? From a whole, like a holistic, so that you come from that perspective.
Yeah. So what would I do differently? So one thing I would do differently based off of what I know now is I wouldn't wait until I'm drowning to ask for help, whether that's in my relationship, whether that's in my parenting or in my business. I think that's something that, knowing what I know now differently is to find a way, right, to just honor what I need sooner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I would say. Yeah.
Okay. That's it. And what would you do the same?
What would I do the same? I would continue to build genuine connection with people who get it, right? Making sure that you have people in your life who are where you're at as well as where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
And also people who remind you of a previous version of yourself. So being able to have a community that can inspire you, can motivate you, and you can also inspire and motivate, right? It can get very, for lack of a better word, boring, just being amongst people who are just exactly where you're at. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I am very much so an energetic, and I thrive off of like the energy around me. And so having people who can motivate me and inspire me is very much so something I appreciate. So I would do exactly that again, is making sure that I have a rich group of people that I can lean into and say, hey, tell me how you did this. Or, hey, I'm working on this project. Can you give me some advice? And, I'm going through something, navigate it. So just making sure I have community and genuine people around me who wants to see me succeed, and I want the same for them.
Well, that's wonderful. And then everybody wins, really.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's great. Oh, well, thank you for sharing your story and some of the ups and the downs along the way. What I'd like to do is ask you some questions off of my Now You're Talking board game.
Yeah, and get to the fun part.
I have a question in here somewhere, but I want to ask you, just from what you've said, how did being the youngest in a family, how has that contributed to who you are?
It has made me okay and comfortable with being the youngest in a lot of the spaces that I'm in. Myself, whether it's with, my peers, even going through schooling. I have a very late birthday. And so sometimes in my head, I feel like, oh, do I deserve to be in this space because I'm so much younger than everyone else? So it's really allowed me to be comfortable with being the youngest. The other thing too, I think it has helped me, part of being the youngest in a Haitian household, but being the only girl, it sometimes shifts the dynamic where, because I was the only girl, despite being the youngest, I was called on more to do a lot of the helping around the household. Right?
Yes.
So it kind of led me to be like this responsible one.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I've allowed that to be helpful for me in terms of learning how to manage different responsibilities, coming into a field where I'm helping people, and it's so rewarding. And so that, I think, I took away and I walked away and I said, that was a helpful experience for me as a child, being the youngest, but the only girl, and having to be called into some of that caretaking responsibility.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think, how you've evolved to saying I can't do it all. Like I'm not capable. I'm not superhuman. So, and being able to let go and give other people the opportunity through your resources
Exactly.
Yeah. So, that's so interesting. When was the last time that you did something that was spontaneous?
It depends what you consider spontaneous. When was the last time?
First thing that comes to your mind.
That's a good one. When was the last time I've done something spontaneous? You have me thinking on that one. So I guess, the first thing that comes to mind is I recently went shorter in my haircut. I think because I'm seeing that was very spontaneous, just cutting my hair down shorter.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that was recently, within the last 2 weeks.
Really? And you did that because it's just easier, or what? What was the reason?
Yeah. So I have a vision where, most women, you would think hair is a big part of our beauty, right? There's this idea that hair defines us. Whereas for me, the less hair I wear on my head, the more beautiful I feel and the more confident I feel within myself. And it's so
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Very cool. And so when did you have that light bulb moment?
So in 2010, I studied abroad in Tanzania, and all of the women wore their hair short.
Yes.
And experiencing and observing that, I was like, oh my, coming from America where I have hid behind my hair because of whatever insecurities, whatever lack of confidence, because hiding our face with our hairs and believing that in order to feel beautiful or to be beautiful, I needed hair. That was the turning point for me where I was like, if they can do it, and look how happy these people are, I can do it. Came back from Tanzania that year and I said, I want to do this. And I started with cutting. I went natural and then I started cutting my hair and shorter and shorter and shorter. And today, here we are. And I feel the most beautiful I've ever felt in my life.
Wow, that's so interesting too, because it seems like, how you're feeling on the inside is radiating now.
Exactly.
And that speaks to that alignment that you talked about right at the beginning, too. That alignment with who you are in your business and coming more into yourself. That's fascinating. What will you commit to doing outside of your comfort zone?
I got this one. So what I would commit to doing outside of my comfort zone is traveling solo.
Okay.
I've been saying it for some years. Where I would go, not exactly sure, but probably somewhere I've been before that I enjoyed. For example, I've been to Aruba. I really enjoyed Aruba. It was so relaxing. And so as I'm thinking and planning a solo trip, I would commit to going on my own, but going somewhere that, provides some familiarity. Just because, it's my first time and I want to do it in a way that feels genuine, that feels good, and also provides safety. Sometimes doing things that are familiar or experiencing things that are familiar can allow us to feel a little bit more safer.
Yeah. And what do you hope to achieve by traveling alone for you?
I hope to just achieve a deeper connection with self, an opportunity to disconnect from not just, my everyday life, but disconnect from some of the different roles and responsibility and just have to care for me, right? I don't have to wake up and make breakfast for the house. I don't have to clean up after the house. I want to just show up for myself 100% of time for that duration of the trip.
Okay, well, I think now, Tasha, that you've put it out there, it will probably more likely come true.
Yes, sooner. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, sooner. Just a couple more questions. How has your favorite high school subject influenced your career path?
Interesting. So what most people don't know is my favorite subject was math, right? I enjoyed math. During high school, my high school was featured in the news and I was titled the Math Whiz.
Really?
Yeah. And then you're asking how that has contributed to my career path.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I would quite the opposite. I don't think I needed to do much math or know too much about mathematics to be in social work, but I do think it has influenced being an entrepreneur, right?
I was going to say
thinking about revenue, and you're thinking about just the financial aspect.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's helping as an entrepreneur, but not necessarily. I don't need that much insight into math as a social worker, as a therapist, so much. But as a business owner, absolutely getting comfortable with numbers.
I would say that that's an absolutely essential skill as an entrepreneur. For sure. Describe your favorite childhood memory that involves food?
Thanksgiving.
Really? Yeah.
Yes. Till today, Thanksgiving is a holiday that I honor and respect and look forward to each year. Yeah. And that's inspired by my experience as a child, coming together at that dinner table, helping my mom. We would start cooking from the night before.
Really? Yes.
So that's definitely one of my favorite childhood memories. Yeah.
Would you have big family dinners where everybody gets together of all different ages and generations? Yeah.
Yes.
Fun.
Yeah. So it's a good experience, good memories, and just being able to chit chat. Right. This is way before the digital age, and so we were having genuine and honest and open conversations. Laughter is a big part of my experience growing up. That you were around my family member, best to believe you will be laughing because the jokes will be rolling from the moment you walk through the doors.
That's wonderful. How have you duplicated that in your own family?
So one thing we do hold, it's not as big as I experienced it as a child, but Thanksgiving is a holiday that we honor as a family. We still have times where we come together, even if it's not at a traditional dinner table. We're all engaging and nourishing our body. We're talking about our days. We're laughing at jokes and connecting it back to like the topic of this digital age. Maybe we're laughing about something trending, right? Nowadays, children are all about the 6-7. I don't know if you kind of.
Oh, no, it's different.
It's a joke amongst these kids, and it's interesting. So, sometimes we're just having those conversations, enjoying each other's presence while connecting over, a yummy dish, a yummy meal.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I know it's like a different language, isn't it? It's the YouTube language. And how do you keep up with that?
My God, thank God for my husband. Sometimes they come home, and then what's happening too is some of the languaging is being recycled. So they'll come home and I'm like, oh, I know what that means. And then they're like, no, the meaning has changed. And I'm like, I thought I was hip to the game. So my husband is a little bit better at making sure he's staying on top of the lingo. And then, they love when we use the language against them. And it's like, oh, no, Mom, you don't say those things. Oh, we say that.
That I even remember when my kids were young, too. We cross the line when we start putting the same lingo in. But kids still think it's funny. So thank you very much for answering all those questions. Now you're talking. So to help other parents who could be struggling with managing all the complexities in the digital era, what are some words of wisdom, Tasha, that you could share for everybody listening, please?
Yeah. So I want to pull from what I was talking about with regards to setting clear boundaries and expectations for children. I think as much as it's important to do so for children, it's also important for us as the adults. So my word to the listener is really sit with yourself and really ask yourself, what's the vision you have for yourself, for your family, and what boundaries, what expectations might need to be considered to honor that, right? Mm-hmm. And also understanding that the process that may come with might not always feel good. So honoring your true feelings and not trying to wash away the feelings by undoing, whether it's the boundaries or the expectations that you are setting that are healthy, not only for our children, for ourselves, right? Guilt has an interesting way of convincing us that we've done something wrong when we're, setting a boundary or creating an expectation that is necessary.
Yes, yes. And so tell me more about that. So when you're saying be kind to yourself or listen to yourself as far as the boundaries, or stick to it no matter what? I'm like, what can you clarify a little bit more, please?
Yeah, it's exactly what you just said, right? So it's sticking to the boundaries, honoring yourself, honoring your feelings, and remembering that, again, taking care of yourself, right? So something that tends to happen is that we forget that a human existed before the children, right? So taking care of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's honoring time alone away from your children because that's what you need for yourself. So practicing self-care, and I know self-care can be a buzzword these days. Self-care doesn't have to be the lavish travels or trips or the manicure, the pedicure. Self-care could be honoring 5 minutes a day for yourself to enjoy, whether it's a cup of coffee, your favorite tea, or just, again, spending an extra minute or so just laying in stillness and quiet, because as parents, we don't always have that quiet time. Identifying what you need, setting boundaries and expectations around that, and not feeling guilty for having to take time for yourself as a parent, right? Because we as parents have to be at an optimal state of health, for lack of a better word, in order to do this job.
That's so true. And keeping us in the equation and consciously keeping ourselves in the equation. Well, Tasha, such words of wisdom to live by. And thank you very much for being here and for sharing your insight. It's very valuable. And I think you'll help a lot of parents out there.
That's my hope. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Tasha's story reminds us that wellness and entrepreneurship aren't separate from parenting. They're woven together. If this conversation encouraged you to protect your boundaries, care for yourself, and lean into community support, please share this episode. It helps more parents and entrepreneurs find tools for connection and growth. You've been listening to Now You're Talking. Parenting with a busy career while guiding kids through the lure of screens isn't easy, but meaningful connection is always worth it. Take a moment to start a conversation with someone you care about. It could be the highlight of their day. Until next time, let the conversations begin. Now you're talking.
I'm Michelle Abraham, and we are honored to have Adrienne Giffin's Now You're Talking podcast on our High Vibe Podcast Network. For more high vibe shows like hers, head on over to highvibepodcastnetwork.com and grab your free gift from our gift vault from all of our hosts. Until then, stay high vibe.